to share what we hope will be an enjoyable and informative show for you. But we're going to start by focusing on the 411 on the GYN. That's what we've been doing each Tuesday, and we have a great series ahead to share with you. Today we have with us Brenda Roach. She's a counseling psychologist, and we want to focus on the psychological aspect of one of a gynecological concern or issue, that of infertility. So again, good morning, Dr. Roach. Well, good morning, Ms. Roach.
Good morning.
Well, maybe that is in the future.
Maybe. Speaking of interview.
Yes, why not? So as a counseling psychologist, let's talk a little bit about the impact of infertility, particularly on the female patient. I don't know if perhaps you want to start with a brief explanation of infertility.
Sure. So infertility, in essence, just a basic definition, is the failure to conceive a child through numerous chances at unprotected sex.
Yes.
Yeah?
Okay, so there you go. And we will be sharing some of these pieces of information on screen. And there are a number of causes for this.
Yes, there are a number of reasons why a female may be infertile. And some of those can be fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS, and age.
Right. They're all factors, and we discussed the polycystic ovarian syndrome just last week, so that would be the PCOS that you see there. So let's talk about now how this really impacts the individual, the female.
Okay, so we know that females are emotional beings, yeah? So we find that the females that we would see at GRB Medical, some of them may exhibit symptoms of anger. Anger being, okay, you may see females walking down the road and they're pregnant, and why am I not pregnant? So anger is one of the psychological symptoms that a woman may experience. Anxiety is another one. So, you're trying for a couple of months, you're trying for maybe 2 years, and every month you're seeing a menstrual cycle, and that can cause some anxiety in a woman. Shame and isolation. So, we come up in a culture where we're socialized as women that we get married, we have children, we are nurturers. Yeah? So that shame and isolation where people or society puts on a woman, it can be exhausting.
And you're right, and often it is older people are people who you would expect would know better, who will come up to you and say things like, what happened to you?
Exactly.
Where are the children? You're like, you don't know people's stories.
Exactly.
So I'm sure that this could only exacerbate things like this, some of these points that we're seeing on screen here now.
This is true. Disappointment is another one. So disappointment in terms of the female may be disappointed, family may be disappointed, because as you would have just said, people are always asking you, when are you having children? This is the society, the culture that we are in. And so we get into people's business like that without knowing all the facts. And then unworthiness. Some women are made to feel as though they are unworthy. Because you have not had a child, you have not birthed a child, you are less of a woman. And that is something that we really need to work on.
Okay, so how can people address that? I mean, as you said, it's an emotional thing, and everybody has got their different ways of dealing with things or processing information. How do you deal with that? Is that deeper than just not being able to carry or for whatever reason not having a child at the time or by the time you would have hoped?
Well, I think what we have to do, as psychologists, what we try to do is try to change that narrative, try to change the beliefs and concepts that we have come up with. So, as I would have said just now, we are socialized that, by a certain age you get married and you have kids. But that may not necessarily be what we want. So I think that what we have to do is identify individually what we want as females. And maybe having children is not what you want. You may just want to have your career. So you notice too that some women are having children later in life. And that's because, they want to establish themselves first, to make sure they have that foundation that they can give to their children. So maybe just being a career person is what you may want. So it's trying to find out what the underlying beliefs are for an individual, and then you work from there.
What should be your response to individuals? Because that may be something too that women who may want the family and want the whole hog, as people say, they may be grappling with how to respond to people What can you say about that? Managing the situation.
Managing the situation. That's a good question. Maybe you can say that I'm just not ready yet. That's one response.
Can't you just tell them mind your business?
You can do that too.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with being selfish.
Okay.
We have to protect ourselves, right? And so sometimes protecting ourselves may mean that we have to tell someone that.
Yeah, I think sometimes that's what people understand, and we try to be polite while people are just about their agenda. And like you said, knowing that other person's business, but we all need to be a little more sensitive that you don't know what people are going through, what family history may have impacted them, or like you said, whether they just chose not to, and they're fine and at peace with that. So but let's discuss more of the ways that this can impact an individual. Can it also impact marriages?
Of course. Now that is a tough one because sometimes a female may not have a significant other who is respectful, understanding the situation that she may be going through. So yes, this can impact marriages where maybe the female might be the one pushing to have children and the male might be a little hesitant, or it could be the other way around where the male is pushing, he wants a son, he wants a daughter, and then that puts additional pressure on the woman to try to conceive. And then when she gets that emotionally charged, or when she gets that stressed, is when things don't happen. So sometimes you may hear women say, I wasn't looking for it, and then it happens. Right? That happens a lot to some. But then too, there are some that are grappling with it. And I find with society that we need to be more open. We need to speak about these issues some more, because there are quite a few women out there who are experiencing infertility and we are not aware. But look, recently Michelle Obama with her book, we didn't know she had miscarriages and all that, and then she had to conceive via IVF. That's something we didn't know because we don't talk.
Right, and that's an option. That's one of the options. Some people may say that's a very expensive option if you don't have the capacity or facility, but then some will say it depends on how badly you want the baby. But what about adoption? Is that something that you have to put yourself in a whole other mindset to be able to embrace? Because I'm thinking that traditionally, at least in our neck of the woods, maybe people don't think of that as one of their options.
And I agree with you. I think that in our neck of the woods, as you said, we don't think of adoption. We find, especially in the Caribbean, I think more so internationally, is something that is seen regularly. But here in the Caribbean, people don't really want to adopt. I'm not sure if because maybe they may be hesitant because you don't know the family backgrounds of some of the children, so you don't know what this child will turn out to be, so to speak. But there are a lot of children out there that need love and need a family as well. So adoption is an option.
Okay, so what about at the time that you're trying to deal with someone, maybe it's a family member or a friend, they're going through that, maybe a loss. What are some of the things that you don't say to them, or what are some of the situations that you shouldn't put them through? Or do you open them to whatever to help them get through it? How do you manage that?
Good question, because behaviors that come out of some of these psychological symptoms that we would have mentioned would be like avoidance. So you may have some friends that you realize that, okay, they get invited to something simple as a baby shower, or even to church functions where you have Mother's Day, which is so publicized, and then you realize that they have an excuse why they can't come. And that may be because we're putting people into situations where they're not ready yet. Women who are not mothers, especially on Mother's Day, when you go to church and you're given a corsage and you're asked to stand up and you're prayed for, and what happens to the women who are not mothers but who are maybe godmothers? They're not acknowledged in any way. So therefore, as you would have said, putting people out there, you shouldn't push people out there to embrace something that they're not ready for as yet.
Okay, so general sensitivities, that is what we need to consider. What else would you like us to know about dealing with the psychological aspects of infertility?
Secrecy. I find that I have noticed quite a few women who hide what they're going through. I think too that comes back to the feeling of the shame and the isolation, the feeling as though you are alone in this. And so that may be one of the reasons why it's so hidden. So I think trying to get out there and open up the conversation so that people don't feel so alone is something that we can address in society.
Okay, excellent. Well, I hope that this has at least helped you to have a better understanding of how you should operate, and certainly some of the situations that persons may be dealing with as it relates to infertility. So let's be a little more sensitive and aware of what we're saying to people, to women. You know, just ask how you're doing and leave it at that. Let them guide the conversation.
Yeah.
But thank you so very much for sharing with us your psychological perspective. Brenda Roach is a counseling psychologist, and today we were focusing on the psychological aspects of infertility on the female patient. It is now 6:31, so we've got to take